It's go time! SpaceX rushes to repair the pad ahead of Flight 6 in less than a month. Can they make it? New footage reveals what happened to Starship during its landing, and it is spectacular. Yet another booster begins construction as SpaceX starts to run out of room, and Vast shows off its next space station, and it looks like Starship may be a big part of it. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. It has been just over a week since the groundbreaking Flight 5, and since then more footage has been released showing just how incredible the flight truly was and what exactly happened. So let's start with the big one. Just like after Flight 4, SpaceX released the full landing footage that they captured from their buoy. We caught a glimpse of this buoy at the end of the livestream, during which we watched Ship 30 perform a rapid unscheduled disassembly. Now SpaceX has released the full video. Watching this incredible footage, the first thing that stands out is the blue glow that lights up the night sky. This is actually a good sign, as methane, which is the fuel of choice for Starship, actually burns blue, showing good ignition on the engines. As the ship approaches the water, we see two distinct points where the flames become disturbed. This is likely caused by SpaceX shutting down two of the three Raptor engines used for landing as it descends. Because of this, we can also tell that all three engines did in fact light, as it was only speculation that they lit properly before. However, due to telemetry from the Raptor engines getting cut at some point, we couldn't tell for sure if all three were successfully lit during the live stream. With the ship on a single engine, it slowly lowers itself to the water before splashing down, and then the rest is history. Having one engine lit for a final approach also shows how powerful Raptor engines are. One single engine with a thrust of around 230 tons is enough to slow the entire ship to a still stand. But the ship isn't the only thing that splashed down from Flight 5. Just off the coast of Starbase, the booster's hot staging ring also decided to go for a swim after the launch. Some photographers from NSF could even catch it impacting the water with a pretty visible splash. And if you thought that would be the end of this piece of hardware, you'd be mistaken. It appears that just like Booster 11 after Flight 4, this hot staging ring is getting fished out of the water. On the 19th, the vessel Haas Ridgewind, used to recover Booster 11 from the bottom of the ocean, once again sailed out to the Gulf of Mexico. Fortunately for us, because of how close the hot staging ring splashed down, this whole process was captured live. Unless SpaceX decides to go on a fishing trip out in the Indian Ocean for Ship 30, that should bring a close to Flight 5. A fishing trip to retrieve Ship 30 from the ocean floor would be a monumental task. The ocean around the splashdown zone is around 5,000 meters or 16,000 feet deep. Let's focus on the next flight, as preparations for Flight 6 are already well underway. According to internal reports, SpaceX is currently targeting the 11th of next month, which is just 22 days after this episode is released. That means the clock is ticking, and the first thing SpaceX needs to check off the list is repairs. After all, no launch mount, no launch. But SpaceX needs the launch mount for one essential thing before they can do anything: static fires. As of now, Booster 13 is set to fly on Flight 6. After its cryo test back in April, it should have all 33 of its Raptors by now. That means SpaceX will want to static fire this booster, and the launch mount is the only location capable of withstanding the 7,500 tons of thrust produced by a current booster's 33 Raptor 2 engines. Besides, Massey simply doesn't have a mount for a booster, so the OLM at the launch site it is. That's why we've seen workers almost entirely focusing on the launch mount itself rather than the tower. The sooner they can get the launch mount operational, the sooner they can test Booster 13, which will give them time to work out any issues that may arise during the static fire. Over the past few days, workers have swarmed the launch mount, placing scaffolding all over the deck and raising man lifts to give workers access to the external piping. During previous launches, this piping seemed to hold up pretty well, so hopefully that's the case now as well. But we can tell it's pretty beaten up, with many of the pipes now sporting a nice coat of rust. However, this is to be expected, as the extreme temperatures during a launch and the highly humid and salty ocean air provide a perfect environment for rusting almost anything. If you've ever welded something, you know that almost immediately the weld begins to rust, and if not adequately treated, it will continue to do so. This is because hotter temperatures speed up oxidation, and you can't get much hotter than a Starship launch. This is why after almost every launch, the launch mount receives a new coat of paint, especially near the legs, as the paint provides a much needed layer of protection. Other than some missing insulation and the superficial rust, the launch mount seems to have held up pretty well for this launch. We also know that many of the components still work, as Booster 12 was placed directly back on the launch mount after the flight, with the booster quick disconnect even reattaching. However, it appears some of the piping for the BQD wasn't so lucky, as some replacement hosing was seen being shipped to the launch site. This means workers will once again need to remove the BQD's back cover before replacing the damaged hosing. Based on how quickly SpaceX had this ready, this was likely expected to happen, so they were prepared with a replacement on standby. Looking at our photos, we can even see where some of this damage may have come from. There are clear scorch marks near the top of the booster quick disconnect shield, likely meaning hot gases were able to enter through there, possibly wreaking havoc on the delicate hosing. Work on the BQD shouldn't take too long. However, repairs will likely be needed for the Raptor quick disconnects, which are much more numerous. Repairs on these two pieces of the equipment will likely be the main focus over the next few days as workers race to prepare the pad for a static fire of Booster 13. Interestingly, as part of the preparation work, SpaceX reinstalled the booster alignment pins used to align the booster for stacking on the launch mount. This was pretty interesting to see, as just a few days ago SpaceX could stack the booster perfectly without these alignment pins. However, seeing how the BQD could attach likely means that these are not needed at all, but are installed as a time-saving measure to allow for quicker stacking. All this costs SpaceX a lot of money. When looking at NASA's space launch system, we all know how much budget management can influence a project. Let's manage budgets together. As a space and engineering fan, keeping track of projects, data, and timelines is essential, and managing personal expenses can be a whole other launchpad of complexity. Have you ever forgotten about a subscription and still got charged every month? It happened to me recently when I found out I was still paying for a learning service for my kids. Today's sponsor, Rocket Money, is the personal finance app that makes managing your money easy. Canceling subscriptions, lowering your bills, or setting up a budget, Rocket Money has it all in one place. I personally love Rocket Money to cancel unwanted subscriptions. No more calling customer service. Beyond that, I've set up my custom budget through the app to track my expenses by category. It even helps me stay on top of my spending limits by sending me alerts when I am getting close to overspending. No more overspending. As you can see, Rocket Money makes it super easy to see all your subscriptions in one place and track your spending habits. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/Felix or click the link in the description to get started for free. Try Rocket Money for free or unlock more features with premium at rocketmoney.com/Felix. Alright, enough budget talk, let's get back to Starbase and how that money is being used effectively. The other point of focus for the workers was the catch arms. This is no surprise, seeing as how they just caught a 250-ton rocket booster out of mid-air. Likely even more with residual fuel. From what we can tell, they held up perfectly, and all of the upgrades SpaceX made before the catch paid off. Other than a few scuff marks on the pads caused by the booster's structural reinforcement rubbing up against them, they appear completely undamaged. They could even open all the way back up to allow for more in-depth inspection. One of the things I am curious about is whether SpaceX will continue to make these chopsticks shorter as they did for Tower B. After all, the booster was precise when touching down, so why not shorten these too? Speaking of future launch infrastructure, why don't we check on how work on Pad B is progressing? But first, we looked into our channel metrics, and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. We just hit 500,000 subscribers. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. While you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to a massive amount of extra content. With it, you get access to daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far. Satellite, aerial and ground photos, more than 400 posts in the past 2 years alone, with up to 7 picture galleries per week. Insights, chats with me, you name it. Thank you so much, you rock. This new launch pad has a completely overhauled design from the first, now sporting a flame diverter and many upgrades for minimal maintenance and rapid reuse, building on the lessons learned from Pad A. Thanks to our recent flyover with Redline Helicopter Tours, we can see how work on the flame diverter is progressing. Quite a bit of excavation has now been completed on the western end of the launch mount. SpaceX has also begun excavating around the launch mount itself, possibly adding more ground support hardware. During our flyover, some workers even decided to help us show the scale of this new launch mount. The current depth looks to be around 10 to 15 feet in some sections, and others appear to go even deeper. Interestingly, SpaceX decided to once again bring out the auger, which is used to drill down and place these piles in the ground. It seems SpaceX had already installed all of these, but it's likely that the area where these current piles need to be placed was previously too deep for this auger to reach, meaning it can only now begin the installation process. Nice augering. In these photos, we can also see that something appears to be blocking our view a bit. That is, of course, SpaceX's very own LR-11000 crane. Along with the massive Saren's crane, it was laid down to prevent any damage during the launch and has now been raised back up to install some of the larger components. Of course, most of those larger components for this new launch pad are not located at the launch site, but rather just down the road at the Sanchez site. Let's head over there to see how those are coming along. Starting with the now much shorter chopsticks, they are currently receiving reinforcements similar to those added to the ones on the first tower to ensure they can withstand a landing. Yes, landings. It looks like SpaceX is getting closer and closer to installing these because one of the first components needed for the chopsticks was transported to the launch site. This component is the cable chain, which connects to the chopsticks and allows cables that provide information or power to the system to move up and down as they do while staying attached. Moving on to the ship's quick disconnect, we can see that the main body segment is complete, with the last piece installed during our flyover. Now that the initial structure is put together, SpaceX will likely begin installing the pipes, which can be seen all over the place. However, it is clear that there are pipes for more than just the ship's quick disconnect here. Many of these pipes are likely destined for another piece of hardware. That is, of course, the launch mount. This launch mount has received a massive overhaul from the previous one with a completely new designed structure. Since the last time we discussed this launch mount, quite a bit of progress has been made, and we can finally start to get an idea of what this new design may be. Thanks to our talented 3D artist Wooper, we can get a good sense of the overall design. As you can see, the new launch mount will consist of 2 main sections. The top section with a circular cutout and the smaller lower section with a larger square-shaped cutout. The circular section should be fairly similar to the launch ring on Pad A, as it will have both the hold-down clamps and the Raptor quick disconnects, which are used to start up the outer ring of Raptor engines. The main difference for this new launch mount appears to be this base section. The previous launch mount had no such structure, but was just one large ring that attached directly to the launch mount legs. This lower square section will likely act similarly to an adapter connecting the new ring to the flame diverter. Looking at this lower segment, it's also clear that there is a fair bit of a gap between its base and the ground. This gap could be temporary to allow for easier construction. However, it is also possible that this could point to the mount being mobile. There are quite a few benefits to having a mobile launch mount, such as ease of repair or the ability to rotate 2 of them to greatly increase launch cadence. We'll watch this closely to see what SpaceX decides to do with this mount. In the meantime, let's turn our attention to the build site, which has seen quite a bit of activity over the last few days. After the triumphant rollback of Booster 12 to the Mega Bay, it was joined by yet another booster, as we saw the first pieces of Booster 16 rolled into the Mega Bay. Yep, this was not a mistake. Booster 16 is in active stacking. This included the common dome and one of these segments for its propellant tanks. SpaceX has gotten pretty fast at stacking these boosters, with booster 15 taking just under 2 months to complete stacking. We should begin to see many more segments come out soon. With this booster now beginning stacking, it's no doubt that things are starting to get a little cramped in there. We have 5 boosters currently inside this 1 megabay. SpaceX is producing these so fast they are going to have to start figuring out what to do with them after they get them back. I propose a flight to Florida as soon as possible. Now that we've talked about the youngest booster, why don't we quickly turn our attention to the oldest one, booster 11. Or at least what's left of it, as this booster has seen better days. After it was recovered from the bottom of the ocean and shipped to Massey's, SpaceX began removing the engines. And it appears SpaceX really was just after those Raptors, as they have now all been successfully removed from the remains of booster 11. I'm curious how useful the information they gather from booster 11 will be, considering they now have an intact booster. However, it is likely to still provide a few answers and help SpaceX engineers determine if they really have solved the right problems. With those Raptors now removed, how about getting an artist to arrange the remains nicely and display them as a sculpture? After all, this is the first one that made it to a landing. The Starship program will revolutionize space travel by granting humanity access to almost anywhere in the solar system. There's almost no doubt about it anymore. One of the places that Starship is set to open up is the Moon, as NASA selected it as its lunar lander for the Artemis program. But if we send people to the Moon, they'll want to go outside and walk around, and right now there is no good way of achieving that. Currently, the only spacesuits in active use are designed for spacewalks, which, despite what the name may suggest, involve little use of the legs. No walkie-walkie. How about a moonwalk? Because of that, all spacesuits from those on the International Space Station to the ones that SpaceX used for the Polaris Dawn mission have stiff legs that almost cannot move due to the pressure inside the suit. So that means we need a new spacesuit. This is why NASA contracted Axiom Space to develop a new lunar spacesuit, the AX-EMU. And they aren't alone in this venture. At the International Astronautical Conference, one of the most important conferences in the spaceflight industry, they announced that they partnered with the luxury clothing brand Prada to develop this suit. Wait, what? A designer spacesuit? Is that really necessary? This partnership makes a lot more sense than you may think, as a spacesuit is, after all, still a suit, and just like any other piece of clothing, it has quite a bit of fabric and textiles that can be extremely challenging to manufacture precisely. Bringing on Prada gives Axiom the experience to produce the fabrics for the new suit more effectively. It seems not just the devil wears Prada. These fabrics need to be able to withstand extreme environments over long periods of time while remaining pressure tight, so precision is everything. We can also see that the unveiled suit is likely even closer to its final design, now sporting the white and gray color scheme necessary for thermal management in space. And on the Moon. Axiom is also developing their own space station, and it's likely they'll develop an in-space version of this suit as well. Although they aren't the only ones working on a space station, and competition is heating up quickly. Vast Space, founded in 2021, has been developing its own space station and aims to be the first private company to deploy one. And their ambitious goals don't stop there. After Haven 1, a single module space station they plan on launching towards the end of 2025, Vast wants to launch Haven 2, which will be a substantial step forward. They're in business. In a short reveal also at the IAC, Vast showed off its design for this new space station. The initial plan will have Haven 2 operational as early as 2028, with 4 individual modules attached together to form the basis of the space station. These main modules appear to be around 5 meters wide and around 15 meters long in the animation. We know this because they did give us one reference when they showed the plans for after 2028, which include expanding the space station with a core module. During the animation, they stated that this core module will be 7 meters wide, which gives us a close approximation of the size of the space station. After 2030, Vast plans to add 4 more modules to the space station, including one with an airlock. This is a fairly ambitious schedule for a company that was founded just 2 years ago, but based on what they've shown, it does seem doable. These main modules are a bit bigger than those on the ISS. However, given that this is a render, it's impossible to know how accurate they are. Having a 5-meter wide and 15-meter long module means that all of these modules will be capable of launching on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy with an extended fairing. This means that the rocket to launch these modules is available now and well understood. This also means VAST can reuse much of the knowledge they learned from Haven 1 designed to fit within Falcon 9's payload fairing for these modules. All of this should help speed up the development of this space station. But if we look at that 7-meter wide core module again, if Falcon Heavy is going to launch the main modules, what's going to launch that? Well, as of now, the only rocket flying with a payload big enough for a 7-meter wide module would, of course, be SpaceX's Starship. I for one am looking forward to all of the new space stations, which should be coming online in just a few years and in time for the big finale of the International Space Station. It's supposed to be retired around 2030. Things are about to get crazy. That's it for today. Remember to smash the like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm. This is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A new Raptor design and our epic Flight 5 design are both up. Grab an early Christmas gift. Link is in the description and in the card you should see now. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Pretty splash. The booster quickly disconnect. A mobile launch mount. Swarmed. They've swarmed it. Spectacular.